Hello and welcome to the April 2022 episode of the Living Legacy series from Of the I Sing American Heritage Through Song. Now in its second season, this program is made possible in part by the Indiana Arts Commission, which receives support from the state of Indiana and the National Endowment for the Arts. The mission of the I Sing is to bring American heritage to life through music. And a cornerstone of this mission is the support and championing of living American composers, because they are the living legacy of our nation's musical heritage and culture. This series features a different living American composer and one of his or her settings of an American text in each month's episode, bringing our national treasury of poetry to the forefront as well. I believe deeply in our nation's music and poetry, and it is an honor to be an ambassador of this music with the mission of bringing people together through the power of song. Today will be a very special treat for us as we witness the compositional mentor-mentee relationship in action with guest composer Dr. Marcus Maroney, professor of composition at the University of Houston, my master's degree alma mater, and one of his rising star students, Mojgan Misaghi. I have fond memories of working with Dr. Moroney as both a student in his class on Benjamin Britten, as well as a featured vocalist within the University of Houston New Music Ensemble. So it is with great excitement that I welcome him onto today's program. Dr. Moroney received his Bachelor of Music degree at the University of Texas at Austin and his master's and doctoral degrees from Yale University School of Music. His principal composition teachers included Ned Rorem and Joan Tower. In 1999, he received a fellowship to the Tanglewood Music Center, the first hearing award from the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, and an ASCAP Morton Gould Young Composers Award. Other awards and fellowships followed, including a Charles Ives Scholarship from the American Academy of Arts and Letters, the Music 2000 Prize from the University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music, further awards from ASCAP, 2 residencies as the Copeland House, and consecutive Woods Chandler Memorial Awards from Yale University. Commissions have come from such organizations and individuals as Eighth Blackbird, the Orchestra of St. Luke's, Timothy McAllister, the Morris School Percussion Ensemble, the Texas Music Festival, the Deer Valley Music Festival, and the Juventus New Music Ensemble. His works have been recorded on the Albany, Centaur, and Blue Griffin labels and are published by Trevco, Seconda Practica, and Ever Fixed Music. Dr. Maroney served on the faculty of the Yale School of Music from 2002 to 2004, and he is currently Associate Professor of Music and Director of Graduate Studies at the University of Houston's Morris School of Music. Today's featured song was written by Mojgan Misaghi. Ms. Misaghi is an Iranian composer based in Houston, Texas. She is pursuing her bachelor's degree in composition at the Morris School of Music, University of Houston. She started music studies in Iran playing violin, and after arriving in the United States, transitioned into composing. She has studied with various violin faculty of Iran, Vienna, and the US, and currently studies composition with Dr. Marcus Maroney. Please join me in welcoming both Dr. Marcus Maroney and Mojgan Misaghi. Marcus and Mojgan, thank you so much, both of you, for being here today and welcome to our program.
Thank you.
Well, it's my pleasure. This is just, as I was sharing in the biographies, I'm just so thrilled to have such a unique experience to share with our viewers today. This is such a lovely example of a mentor-mentee relationship in progress. So many of the guests that I've had in the past have really appreciated the opportunity to speak to, the experiences that they've had with their mentors over the years, and to speak also about how they are now imparting those same elements of guidance to their own compositional students. But today is so special because we are seeing that just that living, breathing entity just as it's happening, which is just lovely. So thank you both so much for making the time and aligning schedules. And I just think we're going to have the best time today. Mojgan, I would love to start with you. So as I just shared with everyone, you are a bright and shining upcoming star within the University of Houston Compositional Department. I would love to know a little bit about the journey that brought you to the University of Houston.
Thank you for inviting me. It's my pleasure. And
Yes, so actually becoming a composition major or like doing this in like an academy, it wasn't never in my mind. I would never think when I was a kid or even teenager that I would like end up being a composer. But right now I'm really happy that I'm studying music and composition, especially. The reason is I didn't like born in a musical family or anything. It just happened very randomly, and I don't know. In a way, it's like it's very weird that I'm here. I mean, I still can't believe it, but I'm very happy, and I never look back. But one thing that made me enter to music was playing violin. I took lessons when I was like a teenager, and I studied with different teachers. It wasn't like we have music programs in a school. We didn't have that. So if you want to learn music, you have to just find a private teacher. And for me, it was that the beginning of my music journey was just going to violin lessons. And um, after me and my family left Iran as a refugee, and we came to United States. When I entered here, I didn't have any idea what I want to do because I was very like lost, and I didn't know this was a whole new experience to me. I didn't know anything. I couldn't speak English very good, and it took me a while to figure out what I want to do, but I somehow knew that I wanted to, whatever it's gonna be connected to music, because I tried different things, different majors, different careers, and I was never happy in any of them. And I figured out whatever I'm gonna do, it has to be connected to music somehow. And I finally figured out that how to apply for a college, because I didn't know. I didn't have a high school in here. I didn't have my high school diploma in here. And I didn't know really how to be in a college, and I had to like Google everything and figure out, go to community college, ask, how I can like have a entry exam, SAT, things like that. So I figured out everything step by step. It wasn't like, oh, I already know the process. And the earliest music lessons I had in United States, it was in a community college in Dallas, and I was taking courses like music theory and whatever that they start in the beginning, freshman college. And I was also taking violin lessons, and I slowly started to figure out that I don't want to do performance because I don't know, something was in it that I couldn't find myself in it, like very competitive environment. It wasn't my personality. I was more caring about the creative part of music, and I was slowly figuring it out that I can find that in composition. I know you can be creative in performance in many ways, but it wasn't just for me. And I love playing violin, but I know that I don't want to take it as my first professional music journey. So I end up actually taking private lesson from the theory teacher in that college. And then he studied composition himself. And he told me, do you want to try composition lessons with me? And I was like, oh, you should take composition lessons to be a composer. I really didn't know how to like, I was like, how composers become a composer? Because like, Mozart, Beethoven, they had a different way of being a composer. They had like, since childhood, they play like virtuosi piano or violin. It's just totally different. I didn't know how like nowadays composers become a composer. And I was like, oh, that's the way you do that. And he was like, yeah, that's one of the ways you can be a composer. And you just take lessons and, start getting creative. And and I took a lesson like one semester, I think, with him. And I end up writing 2 pieces. And then he told me, if you want to like be more successful, you should go out of here and apply for an actual university, 4-year university. And he gave me a few suggestions when I was living in Dallas. and also in around cities like Houston. And for some reason, when I like opened the University of Houston or Moore School of Music website, I really liked the program. It looked very professional to me, and I was like, okay, maybe this is one of the ones that I'm gonna apply. And I applied to audition. Of course, for violin, I prepare a repertoire that just like a Bach and then a sonata or something. I practice for a few months, and I set up the time and whatever is the process. And I made a trip with one of my friends, and I came here and did the audition for violin, and I had the interview with Dr. Maroney and Dr. Smith.
Yeah.
And I showed them the two pieces that I wrote with help of the theory teacher that I was taking lesson. And yeah, I got accepted. I actually accepted in music education as well, but I just didn't want to do it because I don't know. Again, it wasn't my personality. I know that I would love to pursue music in a different way, which is composition, but I respect that music education is also a very good major for people that love it. Yeah, that was the way I entered to University of Houston.
Wow. Mojgan, that is an incredible story. It speaks volumes of every facet of your courage, and everything. I can't imagine, what you have been through with coming to the United States and then navigating. And like you said, you had to learn every step of the way. And I just delight in the fact that you had no qualms, or if you did, you just, as they say, feel the fear and did it anyway. And you found the ways, you asked the right questions, and you took those steps to put yourself on this journey. And you seem just in many ways, but certainly you seem to know yourself in a very deep way, beyond your years, I must say. It's very impressive and very inspiring. So, and having, been at the University of Houston myself, and, had wonderful experiences with Dr. Moroney, both in academic classes and also with performing experiences. I have such a joy for you right now with what you're doing and where you are, because I know that you are getting the best instruction within the most beautiful environment. So I'm just so happy for you, and thank you for sharing that journey. So, if you would, you're studying, and now you have such wonderful tutelage opportunities. Could you speak to, even at this stage of your development, maybe how some of the musical elements from your Iranian heritage maybe are you noticing any kind of a blending of those with the inevitable American influences that are just completely surrounding you? Is that informing any kind of a unique sound that you can already kind of see for yourself as your own compositional style?
Yes, I absolutely feel connection because as you grow up in a culture, every culture has its own music, and in radio and TV, you always hear that in the background somewhere. And without even you want to listen to it, it's always around you. And I think it has a very so much effect on how I think about melodies or harmonies, because it's just in there, and I cannot just separate myself from it, or I cannot say, oh, I don't want to like have any connection between Iranian music or Middle Eastern. Like they're very like each other. And um I always hear it. It's always in me. And I try to avoid forcing it into my music. I don't want to like say, oh, because I'm from Iran, I have to have at least some elements of Iranian music in all of my music. It's not like that. If it's in my control, if I wanted to, I can just make it that there is nothing about that kind of music in my music. And if I really want to have a little footprint, I can do that too. But um I'm happy, and I'm feeling good that I have listened to many music other than Western classical, which actually makes me really happy to like listen to music like Korsakov Scheherazade. It's like based on, you know, the 1001 Nights. It's like a Persian tale, very, very old tales that they translated in different language. And when I listen to it, I feel that like the Iranian composer wrote this piece. I cannot believe how much this composer understood how to like image this like ancient Persian castle and the Shahrazad playing harp, and it's just so beautiful. And when he's like one example for me. You don't have to be Iranian to write a music that it's about stuff like tales about Iran. You can just understand or put Eastern elements in your music without being from there. And or I can just use like, I don't know, Hungarian elements in my music. I don't have to be from there. And I think this culture connection, it's easier with music because you can just go study, you can go listen, you can go explore different world and use them in your music. And I really like this idea of connecting cultures with music. And I think I would love to continue doing that in my music in future. More I learn more ways to use that in different ways.
Oh, absolutely. I could not agree more. That is such a beautiful, just testament to the power of music. You're just such a beautiful spokeswoman for what it's all about. And I have to tell you, oh, the Scheherazade. I remember the first time I heard that, I was in the car. I should have heard it much earlier. I'm admitting just, horrible that I did not know this piece before, but I was in the car, it was on the radio, and I don't remember where I was going, but I needed to be there. But the radio wave was leaving and it was cutting out. And I said, you know what, I don't care. And I pulled over and I listened to the rest of it because it was just, I just was captivated. It's one of the most beautiful pieces of music I think that I've ever heard in my life. So I love that you made that connection. And you're so right about the universality of music. And I love that you are using it in the most open way. You are making it just part of your palette of possibilities, but it's not limiting you. It's not shoehorning you into a particular, sound that people are going to be expecting from you every time. And I just cannot wait to hear where you are going to go with your career, Mojgan. It's just going to be so incredibly exciting. So Marcus, which gosh, that still feels so weird. I want to call you Dr. Maroney. It's just, but we're working on it. You just, what a gem of a student, of a mentee you have in Mojgan. It just must be such a joy to have students and those like her as part of what fills your day as a professor of composition at the University of Houston. I would love to, hear from you about your approach and guidance. And as a singer, I just have to, throw in and ask you if you can, because in your bio, you talk about how Ned Rorem was one of your teachers. And so as a singer with the song and everything, I just thought, oh, how is, you know, are, is anything that he imparted to you particularly still with you in the way that you now are in that role of a mentor? I know that's a very multifaceted question, so I'll let you unpack that as you see fit.
Yeah, I think University of Houston in particular, I'm very fortunate to have ended up here teaching. It's very different from places I studied, and the city is very different. And I didn't really know Houston, even though I grew up in Texas. I didn't really know Houston and sort of the Houston attitude and the atmosphere that's here, that I think, I've just fallen in love with since I've lived in the city, and I've really grown to appreciate the University of Houston and its kind of profile, both in the city and in the state of Texas and in the country. I think it has a very special place,
Mhm.
and it has a really cool energy. And part of that is because it's so welcoming to students. And I think there's just a lot of there's a great exchange of ideas and an exchange of cultures and there's an incredible amount of diversity, and I really love that about the university, and it's wonderful to be able to work with students like Mojgan, who are so informed by a completely different musical upbringing than I was. You know, in the past, I think, especially in the American university system, I think teachers really tried to impart their musical sound and their musical styles and their musical aesthetics on their students. You can read stories about students in the 70s and 80s. You know, they were forced to compose a certain way, and serial 12 tone was the only way, and
Oh
things
yeah.
like that. I was fortunate. I was kind of at the tail end of that, like in the late
good.
90s, early 2000s. I was fortunate enough to kind of, people were starting to really challenge that, and you know, it was the rise of Bang on a Can, and these composers who were really seeking their compositional voices were finally breaking into the academy, which had been sort of built up a wall against composers who weren't writing a certain way. And like you said, I was fortunate to get an opportunity to study with someone like Ned Rorem, who wasn't part of the academy. He was a composer who, you know, kind of carved his own path. He did have a relatively traditional academic upbringing. But, you know, when he was young, he went to Paris and kind of just lived his life and composed and got to know artists, and didn't compose in what was commonly accepted as the correct American way at the time. And, you know, he had a great appreciation for the voice, a largely female voice. He wrote a lot of vocal work, as you know, for singers. And he was really interested in poets, and especially living poets. And he talked very, very thoughtfully about poetry and about the relationship of words to music. And, you know, I wrote a couple of songs studying with him, and he gave us little projects to do about finding poetry or assigning us poetry, and asking us to treat it in different ways that I think I sort of pass on. You know, he had a very, he had his way of setting words. And I think it's a way that definitely works and that produces effective settings. I don't think it's the only, he would have thought it was the only way to do it, but I don't think it's the only way, but it is a way to look at poetry and to think about it when you're setting poetry to music. And it's a sort of an exercise that I pass on to students when they're, especially if they're setting poetry for the first time, which I think, Mojgan, this was your first setting of poetry, at least in English, I think. I don't know if you had said anything before this.
Yes, it was my first time actually to write a art song or anything to do with poetry. And I mean, I read Persian poetry, but never actually like study or explore the world of English poetry in any way. And it was really interesting for me to have this experience.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, just like background wise, because I studied with Ned Rorem, who's known as a composer of song, and then I also studied with Joan Tower, who has like never wrote any vocal music. I think she has one piece that involves children's choir to like a minimal degree, which is the only piece she's ever written that includes a sung or spoken text. So it's kind of like composing with the ultimate instrumental composer, and then composing with the ultimate song composer, and getting this like perspective on music. And I don't think Joan Tower, she uses poetry as inspiration for her pieces a lot, but she just doesn't really, I don't know, for better or worse, like she just has never really been called to compose for the voice, which is fine. There are plenty of fine composers composing for the voice. And but yeah, I think that's an interesting aspect of my background, that the two kind of teachers who, well, I would say there's Joseph Schwanner also was a very important of the teachers I've studied with, but he did compose for the voice, or he does compose for the voice, I should say. But it's interesting to have that perspective about that. And, you know, I think it's super, super incredible to learn each student's like what is in their musical soul.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that I think about a lot when I was composing. And I think every young composer I know I did kind of goes through this moment. And I don't know if Mojgan's been there yet, where you're like, am I composing different enough music, or am I being, am I being unique, and am I being creative? And I think the best thing is to really like, I think at that point, composers have a tendency to turn away from their sort of their musical soul in an attempt to like self-consciously do something different. And I think that's not a healthy way to go. I think it's a moment that a lot of composers come to in their career, maybe more than once even. But I think what's really great, and what is going to make composers write the best music, is to kind of embrace all aspects of it. Like, I grew up in the Texas public school system and was in marching band, and played in wind ensembles, and was really into drum corps. So I think, in the highbrow university, like academia setting, a lot of that type of music is not necessarily looked down upon, but it's not the type of music that people are kind of pushing you to compose if you're studying with certain people and in certain environments. But I find that some of those sounds are just so deeply ingrained in my mind, and they really inform me. And I don't really compose like marching band music, but I really like melodies, and I like big warm chords, and I like really, I like things that are very lyrical, and I like things that are rhythmic. And I think that all comes from my musical upbringing, which was for all, in many ways was very like typically American, and typically Texan in particular. Like,
typically Southern. I'm right there with you. I grew up in South Georgia.
Marching band and football games and all that.
Oh my gosh. Was your football team kind of like, but the marching band was like straight ones at the
competition? Our football team was pretty good, but our marching band is still, our marching band is still really good in the state of Texas. Like, they still do really well, and they're very highly regarded. Like, I was super lucky that my parents happened to live in the neighborhood where I got to go to a high school with a very strong music program. We also had a strong orchestra, so I encountered like really solid orchestral repertoire very early on. Like, I remember we played, I think I was a junior in high school, and we played Sibelius' Second Symphony, which is like, I didn't know who Sibelius was. But clearly, Mojgan's heard me talk about Sibelius so many times. This goes back to when I was 16 years old, and I played Sibelius for the first time, and it was just like, what is this sound? And so I just kind of fell into that. It's not something, and I think again, it's something that has stuck with me. And even experiences that are challenging musically, I think can be very informative to your creative process. And it's really about, like you said, I think synthesizing your experiences and your musical knowledge, and of course absorbing all that you can when you're in the learning process and creating your personal music. And that's what style is, I think, or what your voice is, or whatever. And not trying to force it. And I think that's great about Mojgan, like you're saying, the aspect of Persian music or Middle Eastern music. I think it's there. I don't know a lot about that music and a lot about the technical theories behind it, but I can hear and see some things that I think are coming from there. And I think you don't try to force it. But I think it's part of your nature. And I think it's incredible. It makes your music different than people with different experiences, which I think is such a great thing about the art.
Marcus, your students are so much good. You are a lucky student, and I knew that you were when I found out that you were one of Dr. Maroney's students. I just think that you are meeting them right where they are. I know that your technical skills, not only based on the teachers that you had and the experiences that you've had, and your amazingly high caliber of accolades, but just having heard your music myself as well, it's just fabulous. And so you are just such a wonderful gem of a resource because you have that technical, high caliber level to impart, but probably even more importantly, I think what you were talking about in terms of making sure that people remain true to their compositional soul, that is so beautiful. I think you really have. I'm glad that you were on the tail end of that, kind of
Yeah, me
writing for
too.
academia. Ho ho. But it sounds like you really learned from that in the most positive way, you know, that's an example of maybe what not to do because regardless of if that was somebody's okay, if that was in their soul, that's great, but if it wasn't and they were forced to, what an awful silencing of a person's unique voice. And then the listener is the one that suffers because we never get the music that's truly in their heart. And so I know that that's not going to be the case with your students. They are going to go through this process with you, and you are giving them the courage and the empowerment that they need to really stay with that authentic sound that's true for them. It's just a beautiful thing. And I'm so happy that both of you are on today to share with us this process. Well, I would love now to turn our focus to the song that we'll be featuring today, Mojgan, the Spirits of the Deep, with text by Nathaniel Hawthorne, which is I was so intrigued to find that he was the poet that you had selected for the source of your text. And I'd love to know, why Hawthorne? How did that happen? And kind of if you could guide us towards just the way that this song kind of started to develop for you.
Yes, when Dr. Maroney, we have every semester we have goals that like what we work on this semester, what I have to write, or like he gives me some ideas and about the instrumentation, and then he assigned me that I write 2 contrasting art songs.
Mhm.
And for that, he gave me a few websites that I can look through public domain
Yes.
poetry. And yeah, because I wanted to be safe, not using a poetry that it's still not public domain. So I started like, it actually took me like, I would say a month to find these two poems. I was like, every a few days, I was opening this website, and then like you can filter what kind of poem you want, if they be like kind of more modern or they have more like weight, like you could filter anything you want. And then I was looking for something that don't be like as old, like in 1700, 1800, but also don't be like very new.
Yeah.
So I start just like exploring, reading the poems and see which one connects to me.
Mhm.
Actually, one of the reasons that I choose this specific one, it was the simple language that he used, that it's like for someone like me as English their second language, it was easy to understand what he's trying to say, and I didn't have to use Google Translate
Yes.
to translate the words. So
Yes.
that was like a thumbs up for me. I was like, this is the one, because I don't want to keep forgetting, oh, what was that word's meaning? So I have to like keep going back and look. So it was, I really like how like fluent and easy to understand is this poem is beautiful, but at the same time I like the meaning behind it. And when I show it to Dr. Maroney, I'm pretty sure he liked it too. He said it's a good idea, and I didn't know Nathaniel Hawthorne, like I didn't know him at all before this poem. And then before that, writing the song, we start to like reading it in our lessons, and kind of like he asked me to read it, because it's funny, because when I read English, sometimes I put accents in the words that I shouldn't put. Like when you read it, like someone that have experience reading poem, they know which words they put accent on, and I was sometimes putting it in wrong word. And then it kind of helped me to like figure out how to like which words are important, like more important. And he taught me a technique to just read it, and as you read it, you know in the music which words get more attention and accent, like which words are leading to those words. Like I start doing that, and I just write the poem in a paper, and I start like putting the accent sign in the words that I was thinking that they should have accent, and I was putting an arrow in the ones that I would say they're not as important and they are leading to something else. So I kind of like analyze the poem, and also like I analyze the words, like if the beginning, what kind of mood it has, like is it as dark yet, or it's still like introducing what's going on. And then so I started to like kind of like make notes, like here should be dark, here should be like hopeful and things like that, and kind of like first figure out the poem, and then I move to the music and what I want to do for piano, like what kind of harmonic language I want to use, what are my vocal range, when is like the climax of the song. So these are things that I figure out after I understood the poem.
Wow. Oh my gosh, I love that process. And bravo to you, Dr. Baroni, Marcus. That's just a wonderful, um, really, you're echoing what a singer does. Also, when we're trying to learn a piece and not just learn the notes and rhythms and words, but to actually make a story out of it, which, if we're not telling stories, I don't care what, instrumentalist, singer, whatever. I mean, that's what we're doing, right? That's what this art form is all about. And so certainly, really making sure that those words are getting that the importance and that connection first from the performer, so that then we can impart that connection to the audience. And I do that too when I'm learning a piece sometimes, is, I find like, well, where are my anchor words? And everything else is kind of being pulled to that, or, my magnet notes that are, everything is drawing to that. So I love that I've, never heard a composer talk about those things in that way, but it's awesome, because that I just feel like we're already so in sync, even, with the an hour time difference between us, and many states in between us. I feel like we're just right here on the same page with that process, and that's lovely. Marcus, is that something that you learned from Ned Rorem?
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially, well, he was very interesting because he would often, like one of his exercises, which I haven't done with Mojgan, but and it depends on if she wants to continue writing vocal music, but there's so much else to study too. But one of the big things that he really did, and he has a song cycle that does this, is set the same text in two different ways. So like set it in a way that where the accompaniment and the vocal line really seems to quote unquote match the text, whatever that means, and then also set the same exact text in a way where it's kind of doing the opposite of what you would expect. So if it's a very dark poem or something, set it in a very light way, just to get sort of that creative friction between the results, and
Sure.
as much as an experiment as a creative process, but just giving you um, the perspective to not always set it as obviously as you might think to
Right.
set it, to kind of question before, as you go on to write, to question if there's something that you should be um, doing differently,
Mhm.
so that you can kind of expand your perspective on the poem, if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes complete sense. I love that he did that. And gosh, again, from the singer's perspective, that is something. And actually, Buck Ross, who is the amazing opera director at the University of Houston, we really built that department and built that program into the incredible one that it is today. He was a student of many, but notably of Wesley Balk, who is he is known as the opera director that finally figured out how to teach opera singers how to act, in an authentic way. And I mean, I have them, they're like right on my piano, and it's a set of emotion cards. And what you do is you shuffle them just like a, deck of cards. They're completely at random. And you go through your arias or your art songs or what have you, and you have to sing, you flip and then you sing a phrase and then you flip another one. And even if it makes complete, nonsense and it just seems like it would be so disjunct, you have to do it. And you have to sing this phrase about the sunshine, sad or what. But I mean, isn't that just it opens up that multifaceted layering of the human experience that, yeah, sometimes the sun is shining outside and we're having an awful day, and what that feels like. It's not always the obvious, oh, the sun is shining, so let's have a major chord, right? So I think that I love that is something that's reflected in your compositional process. Again, not that you have to go there every time, but that just to keep that awareness expanded for all of those possibilities, because I think there is so much to speak to. There are so many things that human beings experience that we need to remember we're not alone in, and music can help us do that. I think probably I think we're one of the best, art forms that can do that if we remain open. So I love that. Thank you for letting me ramble for a second as
Oh,
a
yeah.
singer, but I mean, it's just, again, it's just so cool, and this is why I love the living composer, performer relationship that's possible, because it just, magic can happen when we're all involved in the creative process, I think. So gosh, that's so cool. And so, Moshgan, with all of this in mind, with everything that we've just kind of talked about with the perspective and the process here of this piece, I would love if you would feel comfortable reciting the text of this poem for us. So many things I think come out naturally when a composer does this, and I would just love to for you to share that with us.
Yes, of
Okay.
course. The ocean has its silent caves, deep, quiet, and alone. Though there be fury on the waves, beneath them there is none. The awful spirits of the deep hold their communion there, and there are those for whom we weep, the young, the bright, the fair. Calmly, the wearied seamen rest beneath their own blue sea. The ocean solitudes are blessed, for there is purity. The earth has guilt, the earth has care, unquiet are its graves, but peaceful sleep is ever there beneath the dark blue waves.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much. And now it is my delight to sing Spirits of the Deep by Mojgan Misaghi with text by Nathaniel Hawthorne. That's okay. Do you want to do it again? Let's just start over. No, it's okay. I'm really glad that we're doing it over because my voice, it's been so tired. I've not, no, I mean, I haven't practiced in the right octave. I've just been practicing like pitch learning. So I didn't practice, okay, I need to switch more chest voice, and it gives me a chance to figure this out. So no, we're totally fine. Let's just, no, honey, you're fine. You are fine. Okay, one more.
there are those for whom we weep, the young, the bright, the fair. Calmly the weary seamen rest beneath their own blue sea. The ocean solitudes are blessed, for there is purity. The earth has killed, the earth has killed, unquiet are its graves. But peaceful sleep is ever there beneath the dark blue waves.
Thank you again so much for the opportunity to premiere your first art song. I feel so honored to be such a part of your musical journey, and I really am grateful for that. So thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Yes. And talk to us about, so you read the text and then I sang the poem, which allowed our listeners to hear how you expanded that musically within your own compositional voice. But I'd love to hear from you. How does this poem speak to you? What meaning does it hold for you?
The original name of this poem is The Ocean, and I didn't want to pick it for my art song name because I thought maybe something there is in this poem that speaks to me the most, and that was the spirits of the deep, because I feel like the focus is about the spirits of the deep and ocean, but in a way that when we think about ocean, we say, oh, it's beautiful, it's sea creatures, and it's blue, it's like all these like nice and positive, but at the same time ocean has a nature of being dangerous, being cruel, being a place that many people have lost their life in different ways. So I was trying to kind of have both of these, the beauty, the positive, and the death and the negative in this art song. And for me, the beginning of the poem says the ocean has its silent caves, and it's something really, I thought about it. What does that mean? The ocean has its silent caves. And we started to do this in our lesson, but I also in my own time, I was kind of reading it and I was trying to figure out what does he mean? The ocean has its silent caves, deep, quiet, and alone. And we figured out that caves mean like the graves, that the dead people under the sea. And it's deep, quiet, and alone because it's very deep on the sea. And under the water, it's quiet. When you go there, you don't hear anything. It's just silence in a very different way, and alone, because they're just there, their soul is there, and there is no way that, you know, they can come out back to the life, and that would be them being alone. And so I started to figure out, oh, this lyric is already telling what is trying to tell. But for me, I was trying to create something that be a little bit approaching it slowly. Like, I don't say everything in the first a few bars. So I started with the piano accompaniment for a few measures, and as you see the song and you sing it, the ocean, like the way I started is just two half notes, and it's just, I want to say it's big, the ocean is big, and then beneath that I start to unfold like what's going on in the ocean. And I think this lyric, this poem helped me to realize that I have to like tell what's going on slowly, not everything in the beginning. And when I reached to the second part, the awful spirits of the deep hold their communion there, I figure out that now the poet is talking about how the spirits of deep are doing down there, and then like what happened to them. And then we find out that they were seamen, and they somehow their ship sink or something happened in the sea that caused them to drown under the ocean and die. And then I like that part that says the young, the bright, the fair. We can say like all kinds of people where there are young people, children, women, older people. So it's just a lot of soul that they didn't want to die there, but they died. So it's just I think this poem, it's very dark, and at the end it says something that it makes it a little bit out of this darkness, and says the earth has guilt, the earth has care. And I feel the guilt is the guilt of nature. You cannot help it. Nature happens, accidents happens, and you know, earth is guilty. A lot of people die in different ways, but the earth also has care. It also knows how to take care of you. And I found that the earth has care. One of the like little parts that this poem has, that it has hope on it. You know, everything is not dark, everything is not bad and cruel. There are still good things in this life. And at the end it says, but peaceful sleep is ever there. At least we know their sleep is peaceful. Now they're there and they sleep, and they may remain there forever, but at least we know it's peaceful beneath the dark blue waves. And I think he pictured that in a most beautiful way, that any other composer who writes the art song based on this, I think they can connect somehow in a similar way or a different way. But this poem has something in it that I was really more and more, I was like involved in this more and more. I figure out how important is what kind of poem you choose, because first you have to understand it to be able to write music about it. And I didn't understand many other poems that I choose during this process, and I couldn't understand what they're trying to say. And this was one of the first ones that I start to understand. And when I figure out the meaning beyond just the words, that way I felt more comfortable writing music about it. Like I can like color the notes based on what I'm thinking the poem is trying to say.
Yeah. Mojgan, I love your process. And, you know, even I think it's really fascinating. This poem is not, it's more of that kind of, you know, expository narrative kind of a thing. And yet you are already thinking so dramatically I hope that you not only continue with song composition, but I hope you will maybe even consider some more dramatic, almost character-based composition, because you are already, even at this initial stage with song composition, so in tune with making a connection, with telling a story, with understanding that text. And I think that what you've been able to do with telling a story with this piece that's just in that kind of third person, when you get going with a character, there's gonna be no stopping you. So I really hope, Marcus, that you really encourage and keep going with this, because it's only up from here, and you're already just so well on your way. Thank you so much for sharing those insights, and it's wonderfully exciting. Um, yeah. So why don't we close? I'd love to hear from each of you, and maybe combined if there are some things going on within the university. Talk to us now about what's coming up. Are there some exciting things on the horizon we can look forward to?
Um, I'm sure Mojgan will mention this, but she has her junior recital coming up at the end of the semester, which will be a recital, a half recital of all her own music. This song and one of the other songs will be included on that. So that's very exciting for her. We always have our student composers do studio recitals, and one of those is coming up very shortly, where we showcase all the wonderful works of our students. From my end, I'm doing a really wonderful project with Rocco, which is a chamber orchestra in town, at the Cistern, which is a very bizarre but amazing underground space that's basically like a water repository, and it has this amazing cavernous resonance. So I'm writing a piece for brass, and that'll be sort of this immersive piece
Yeah.
in May. So that'll be done in May, and it's about water. And as you know, Houston has a very complex relationship with water.
Yes. Well said.
But it's really about the elemental kind of force of water, and it'll be the space is very dark, and it's there's like water all around, and then it's very resonant, and so it should be, hopefully it'll be a very cool immersive experience. Yeah, so that's the main things that are going on kind of in our department, the composition department, and with my own personal composition. So maybe Mojgan can tell a little bit more about hers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, well, my junior recital, as Dr. Maroney mentioned, it's coming on May 1st, and I'm really excited. I feel like I finally can just rest back and watch performers playing my pieces or songs, and it's just for me, it's a very good feeling that I feel these check marks like they're done, and makes me feel that I achieved and I'm going forward. And I love that feeling that I know that, okay, now I'm done with this, and then I should work more for the senior recital or graduating and things like that. It's a very good feeling for me, and I'm looking forward for that. And other than that, I would try to add a few of my pieces and this song to the composition recitals we have during each semester, the studio recital and the honors recital, if I get accepted. And I also applied for a few competitions and also summer festivals. I'm waiting to hear back to see if I can attend any. And I always have like I'm like in online looking for opportunities to send my music or do stuff like that, and to be active basically, so that way I can I have more courage to write more music.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so proud to hear that. I mean, in this day and age, we have to, right? That is just part and parcel of being an artist, and I'm so glad you're embracing that at this early stage. And you know, the technology's on our side with that. There are so many opportunities now that we can find out about because they're advertised in a way that is accessible, and they're, you know, it's facilitated fairly easily to apply to them, all of that. So I love that you're taking advantage of every possible opportunity, because I truly, you are just a rising, shining star here. And I'm so glad that you are making that investment in yourself so that this music will get out there because we all need to hear it. And Dr. Maroney, I'm so glad that your compositional voice is still one that that is continuing to develop and grow. You're such a living testament of what this compositional process and life is supposed to be. Your students learn so much from you both directly and indirectly. So I just cannot tell you how delighted I am that we got to see this beautiful mentor-mentee relationship in progress before our eyes today. It's lovely, and it's just so invigorating to see that that art is just continuing to be created all around us in such wonderful and profound ways. So to both of you, I am so grateful for your time, and we look forward to keeping up with both of you and with everything that you have going on. So thank you so much again, both of you, for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you for including us in your amazing project. We really appreciate it.
Oh, it means the world to have you. Thank you so much. And for those of you watching, this has been the Living Legacy series. We sure hope you've enjoyed it.